Hello again for a little episode here in Clifton Market. We're interviewing famous people, and we have Steve Lansky here. He's a book writer and a poet and an artist, and he's written a recent book. And you can introduce yourself, Steve.
Well, hello. Nice to meet you, Tom. I've never seen you before. Do you come to this place often? No, seriously.
Oh, we're old friends, so don't think.
You're here all the time. And I'm a local guy. I've been living in Clifton most of my life, most of my childhood, most of my adult life. And I've written a book called The Break, which is a memoir about my 43rd year of my life, which ended about 20 years ago. So that's all I got to say. Got a question about the book? Did you read it? What did you think?
Well, I immediately I thought of all the great books of development, passing through a barrier, reaching a new level, sort of an epiphany, and then you sort of break through the sound barrier. And from 43 to now, you're in this new area.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, there was a lot going on in that 43rd year, and since then I've been a teacher for many years and traveled the world and sailed many far out places and really had a lot of great experiences. And I think in some way I owe it to that 43rd year. You know, that was a passage through understanding and finding a new understanding of myself that I didn't expect to find. Though I did go into that 43rd year planning to write a book about it. And I think as the book describes, I didn't expect what happened to happen. I thought it would be a great success and that the new medication would make life easier. I don't know if those of you out there in video land know this, but I have a mental illness called schizophrenia, and I was diagnosed when I was about 20 years old. And it was pretty much in check, under control. I was a poet and a teacher in my 43rd year, and I wanted to kind of rejuvenate my life, give it a new boost, and I heard about a new medication which was alleged to have fewer side effects and would have the same working response to my schizophrenia, my positive symptoms. And as it turned out, it was a kind of a hell-raising ride. And maybe you could ask some questions if you want about that. I don't know.
Well, I realize now the book is really about that 1 year.
It really is. It's about March, April to November 2001. And I think, also you may remember the unrest over the Rhine in early spring of 2001. So that's the backdrop of the initial change in medication. And then not to spoil it, but I was in an interesting circumstance when 9/11 happened. And and I think that the operational delusion for most of the story was that I was in a film, and that I thought I was making a film about something. I didn't quite know what or who was directing it. I didn't quite have the script, but I had this sense that I was part of a film that was being made.
And 1 minute you were the director, then you were the actor, then you were the writer.
Yeah.
You played all hats.
Yeah.
And this is happening in real-time life.
Yeah, and it was delusional, it was, and yet at the same time, when I traveled a lot. In the story I cover a train trip to New York City, a train trip back with lots of side tours, and then a flight to Vermont, and another bus trip trying to get into Canada, and then a bus and train trip back from northern New York, upstate New York. So it was a travel log in certain ways.
Yes, very much so. It was a wonderful. It just reminded me so much of a great novel of revelation, of detailing small minutia of your trip. It's just a fascinating book. If it didn't have this backdrop of schizophrenia, I guess in many ways this needs to be written now because it really adds something to a real story.
Well, it's a true story, and I think that reflecting back on it, I saw the humor in a lot of what I experienced and sort of was able to convey that in real time as the story unfolds. Obviously, it was very difficult at times. I was, I don't know. I was in some situations where I didn't know how they would turn out. The guns pointed at me, locked up in various facilities, questioned by authorities, and at the same time, sort of taking it all in and not knowing why is this happening to me.
You were taking copious notes at the time and writing it down later. I'm always amazed by your photographic memory.
Yeah, the details really do stick with me, and there are also 3 of my sketches in the book. The book's divided into 3 sections, and each section has a sketch sort of identifying some of the areas where the story takes place, and a lot of it really takes place right here on Ludlow. And so I can look out and see sort of the set for the movie in my mind, and it's the story of the details. Being a sketching artist and illustrator, I see detail anyway. There's detail about clothing, and some of that is intended to be humor, but also I think part of the symptomology of my schizophrenia is to some degree an obsession with details. I don't know if it's just a good thing, or I don't think it hurts anything, but it's like I pick up on a lot of detail.
Well, having schizophrenia described through your genius makes it special. Something that other schizophrenics that I know, that I visited in the Institute here at UC, they don't have that quality, even though they desired to be great artists. But you have achieved that in your writings. I must admit, nobody could hold a candle to this book as far as being a revelation and a transformation.
Thank you, Tom. I get chills hearing you say that. I don't know. I guess I have to thank the Holy Spirit or
God above anybody that you could possibly thank. And the fun thing about this is that I knew you through this passage period. Right. I knew all the pivotal points. I knew the characters you're talking about.
So that's part of what makes it an interesting story for Clifton and for you and for our community, and sharing it with the community is, I don't know. I'm humbled by the fact that I could tell it.
Yeah, I'd be humbled too. As a painter, I don't have the capability of being the writer that you are. I write a lot, but
You write very well, Tom.
No,
I've read a lot of your writings, and you paint very well too.
Thank you.
You're one of the stars of the neighborhood, obviously.
Well,
and you're leading the way with volunteer work here at Clifton Market.
Yeah.
And, that whole volunteer ethic, and that was the ethic that I lived with as a social worker, before I got to the point of where the story starts. I had been working with the mentally ill adults for some years, and trying to give back in a way, because I had been given so much by the local community. And I hate to say the system gave, but the system gave. The system also was pretty unresponsive and unhelpful in a lot of ways. But thank God for a couple of local people who knew me well enough to say, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right, this isn't you, and that speaks volumes for, I think some people might think that I'm, in some way angry at the people who helped me get back on track, and at the time I was, sure, but read the book.
Yes, I remember the intervention scenes, of which there are numerous, but one of them is rather pivotal right here on the strip.
Yeah.
And people knew you were spiraling out of control.
Yeah, and that's takes a village. I think it was that's Hillary's book, but what can I say? I think mine's a little more interesting.
I didn't read Hillary's book, but you've really opened up a lot for me to branch out. Normally I read technical books about sailing, but it's important to read transformational stories.
Thank you. Yeah, very transformational. It was a passage that for some reason I had to make, and I'm really happy to be able to share it. And I also want to thank some people like Megan Feitz, or I think it's Feitz, it might be Fitzy, I don't know how she pronounces it, but she's with Art Possible in Columbus and helped me get an OAC grant through the Artists with Disabilities program. And also Peter Olson, my editor-publisher at Arbitrary Press. What a stand-up guy, and he's done things with the editing that I couldn't have done, and made it a much more readable, accessible, a faster read, so to speak. And I think starting to see comments like "couldn't put it down," and that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I've read it so many times that as I worked on it, it's hard for me to be objective about that. But thank you for doing this.
Well, thank you, Steve. And, well, that looks very good. Well, thank you.